Welcome in. This is Fresh Talks Global Vision. We've been doing this fabulous series on Mindset Matters. I am so enjoying every expert and hearing their stories, their experiences, how they help other clients in trying to break through. Today, we're going to be talking about business. I love talking about business because it's all the connection around the money, the strategies. And if we bring in the mindset, Chris Mahan or
Mahan.
Mahan
hmm
shared with me that he has some good stories about what his clients are working through and how he wants to kind of web this through so that you can feel your stories. Where are you getting stuck? Where are the things that maybe you don't even know, but you're working very hard? Are you working on the right things? Sometimes when our mindset is out there, we feel so busy and we don't realize that where's the connection that you can connect with your audience? Well, your mind is going to be putting those blockers on for the quickest way to get to things. You're just going to keep working and sabotage it unless you really bring in that alignment. My name is Rhonda Liebig. I am the host and producer of this show, and we've been doing this for 7 years. I'm always looking at mindset transformation entertainment. And this is why I'm bringing Chris in, is that I want to entertain your mind. I want your mind to be able to go cohesively with your heart so that you can connect and break through. Break through. We are speaker locking arms. We're speakers, we're people out there using our vocals so we can make a transformation for ourselves, so we can give more love to others, give others transformation just by us being there and loving in our heart. So let's welcome in Chris Mahan. I think I did it right that time. I just love that H there, and I just want to like roll over and just say man, but Mahan?
Yep, Mahan, Mahan.
Mahan.
I get called all kinds of things, but yeah. Hey, Rhonda, it is great to be with you today. Looking forward to our discussion, and cannot agree with you more about how important mindset is to people's success. And as a business owner, one of the things that I find in many of the clients that I've worked with is they're not enjoying the success that they know they have the potential to achieve. And, I work with them to help them to grow their businesses, to grow their profit, to be able to spend less time in and on their business. But one of the things that I almost always have to do is deal with this topic of mindset. And the reason is because we understand that if we don't like the results that we're getting, we need to change something. We need to change the way that we're going about it. And so what most people do is they go back one step and they realize the actions that they take create the results that they see. And so they think if I just go back and change my actions, that will change my results. Well, that's true to an extent. And a book that just really changed the way that I looked at mindset is a book called What to Say to Yourself, or let's see, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself, by Shad Helmstetter, PhD. And in his book, he says there's a progression. He says that programming creates beliefs. Beliefs create attitudes. Attitudes create feelings. Feelings create actions, and actions create results. And so one of the things that when I read that and when I began to really try to digest it is I realized that if I want to change my results, I have to go back farther than just my last actions. I need to find out what is it that's behind those actions. And so that's why I wanted to share a few stories with you, if that's okay.
Sounds fabulous. And can you say that again? I love that part where you're coming from the book and you where the emotions and the action and the results. Can you
Sure.
say that string again? That was excellent.
Yeah. Here's the book that I'm talking about. It's really, I don't think it's in print. It's really hard to get, but you might be able to find it in your library or online somewhere. He says that programming creates beliefs, and that beliefs create attitudes. Attitudes create feelings. Feelings determine our actions, and our actions create results.
I got it. So I
And so,
love that base.
yeah,
Oh,
I'm sorry, what was that?
well, I love that base because the programming is where you're talking about. Because when we started this conversation, it's around that you're working in this mindset. I mean, you have these strategies and that experience to be able to give to somebody, but are they going to take the action or the strong action that you know that you can see them doing? So when you have that programming, where does that start for you in how you get to kind of like step into maybe some stories around this about like, hey, I can catch you on some things. So let's get you clearing out some of this mindset space so that we can do like the strategies. Because and later I want to get to those strategies. So can we get right in there and kind of get that conversation going?
Sure. Yeah. And you're right. Programming is where it begins. And programming, we are programmed from the day we were born. But I mean, a lot of our basic programming, a lot of the things that really make us the way that we are things that usually take place within like the first 5 years of our life. People tell us things about ourselves. And as a child, because they're an authority figure, they're an adult, they're someone that we believe knows what's up, is we just blindly accept what they tell us about ourselves. And I'm talking about people of authority like parents, coaches, clergy, even teachers, and even peers. Not so much adults, but even what peers tell us about ourselves. And so I realized that some of the struggles that I faced with mindset is I hate learning something new. I mean, I will hold on to my cell phone until it absolutely dies before I get an upgrade because I don't want to have to learn, a whole new phone system. And I that hesitancy is with me a lot, and I really have to work to overcome that. Also, I'm somewhat of a perfectionist, but a lot of times when we use that term perfectionist, we look at it in a positive light, but there's also a real negative light to perfectionism, especially when it comes to business owners. If we don't take action until everything is perfect, we'll never take action. And so we have to be able to overcome that tendency to only be satisfied with perfectionism. And obviously, we need to do the best that we can, but we don't have to be perfect. And then there is the whole thing that many people deal with. I'm never enough.
Mhm.
I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not talented enough. I'm not whatever. You fill in the blank. And again, that comes from the things that we were programmed most likely as children. And then the fourth thing is I hesitate to make decisions. Again, it kind of ties in some with that perfectionism, but it's like I want all these facts before I finally go ahead and take a step and pull the trigger and make a decision. So I wondered, what is it? Why are those things such an ingrained part of my personality?
Yeah.
And I got to thinking back to my childhood, and again, because of what Helmstetter wrote in his book, I thought, well, what is it that led to these things? And so there's a few stories then that I have, and I want to preface this, excuse me, by saying I'm not telling these stories to reflect badly on somebody. Uh, these are these are things that happened in my life, and I realized the impact that they had. And my responsibility is I can either continue to believe those things that I was programmed wrongly, or I can be adult and mature and I can take responsibility and say, I have the tools to overcome this. So let me take you back to when I was about 5 years
And
old.
Chris, I want to add on to that and I want
Sure.
to get in your story.
Hmm.
I love what you said right there. You just took a moment and this is divine. I can remember when these breakthrough things, were happening for me too. And it was, I wanted to blame people. And I love how you're saying, hey, we're going to talk about these conversations in a way of like, give the audience and give you the space to be able to experience, give them the experience of what you're sharing so that they don't feel guilty. You as an audience, Fresh Talks Global Vision, that you are not feeling that you have to blame anybody, that what we're doing here is really opening up the space that that's generational stuff. You're some parents, really love you. We hear that some parents, kind of the way they raise their kids. But this is where we get to start healing, is when we know that when we get to go back and actually experience some of the things so we can start opening ourselves up. That's why I love what you said there, Chris, is like, this is informational. And it's another thing I love to hear is like, I'm not talking about poor me, because that's not it. It's that I know that the more that you share your story, the more you're going to be able to be free of that stuff, and people will be able to see and hear themselves by being able to find their stories too. So yeah, let's get in there, and I want to hear what some the breakthroughs to get to where you are right now, what you're learning in your journey.
Sure. Yeah. Because again, if that procession that we talk about, that progression, you know, really our actions start with our programming. And so if we want to, excuse me, not our actions, but our results, start with our programming. If we really want to change those end results, we have to look at the programming and see what's faulty about it and change it. So when I was 5 years old, I went off to kindergarten. I was a very, very young, I don't remember if I was late fours or early fives, but anyway, I was very young. Wasn't real mature. I really hadn't had a lot of experience in social gatherings. And so I did not do well in kindergarten. I was kind of a pill, hard to take care of, full of energy. And so eventually the school talked with my parents and said, he's just not ready. And so I was taken out of kindergarten. And my mom decided that, and this is, as I recall, pretty much what she said to me is, if you can't behave enough to learn in school, then I'm going to teach you here at home. And one of the first things that she wanted to teach me was how to tell time. Now you can take a look at my face and my hair, and you know that when I was 5 years old, we didn't have digital clocks. We had analog clocks. That's the round thing with all the numbers around it and the two hands. And, my mom, I had a toy clock, and she would move the hands around and she would say, now this is 2 o'clock, because the small hand's on the 2 and the big hand's on the 0. And then she would move the hands and she would say, now tell me, what time is it? And no matter how hard I tried, it was a concept that I could not grasp. And this went on for several minutes, and eventually she lost her patience. She slapped me across the face, knocked me out of my chair. I had a bloody lip. I'm laying there on the floor, and she's standing over top of me saying, "You are so stupid, you will never learn anything." And I realize, that today, when I realize I'm hesitant to learn something new, that's where that comes from. That's the programming that's making me have that feeling, that attitude about myself. Now, about the same time, when I was 5 years old, my mom decided that she wanted me to start making my bed. Great practice for a parent, give responsibility as soon as you can. However, she would come in and she showed me how to make the bed. And she said, now you do it. And I did it. Now, as a 5-year-old, I thought I did a pretty good job, but it was not good enough. And so she tore the bed apart and she said, do it again. And that happened a few times. And again, she was beginning to lose her patience. And she finally, she tore it apart and she goes, you are going to stay in this room until you get this right. You don't come and tell me that you're done until it is done right. So she left the room. I worked on it. I thought I had it great. I called her in. She took one look at it. It was a mess. I'll admit it probably was a mess. And again, she lost her temper. She threw me in a corner. She started kicking me and telling me how stupid I was, why I can't do something right. And so again, when I'm dealing with perfectionism today as an adult, I realize that's the programming that leads to those attitudes and feelings. And
Mm,
so if I want to get over that perfectionism that leads to procrastination, then I have to go back and say, is that programming really true?
right, right.
So then I move up just a little bit. When I did go back to school, I ended up doing really well for the first few years. I went to first and second grade in one school, third grade in another. And then we moved to a rural community when I started fourth grade. And again, pretty much a lot of the stuff that they were teaching there in fourth grade, I'd already been taught in third grade in the previous school system. Went from an advanced city school system to a rural school system, and so they were a little bit behind. And so they decided that they would put me in fifth grade math. So when math time came, I was sent to the fifth grade classroom, and I would sit in on fifth grade math and do that. Well, after a couple of weeks of that, they just decided to put me in fifth grade, period. And the difficulty was is that I went from being a straight A student to a straight C student, because yeah, many of the things that they were teaching in fourth grade I'd already been taught in third, but I was getting a lot of things in fifth grade that I didn't have foundational concepts for. So it took me several years. Finally, when I was in ninth grade, my grades finally were getting back to where they should have been. And I remember bringing home that grade card. I had all A's and a B plus. And, I was so proud, I'd finally made that breakthrough. And, I give my parents my card. And my mom's first comment was, why isn't this B and A? Never good enough.
Yeah.
Never good enough. And then the last story that I want to tell you is also when I was
Can I hold you there for a moment?
Sure. Yep.
Oh, just taking a breath, Chris. Oh gosh. In our community, Fresh Talks Global Vision, think about this is and I have that running theme also about not being smart, not being good enough. So see where that lands for you. Chris, I love authenticity that you're sharing with your story, and I want to really get into that next story, or maybe even like where did you feel that pivot to where you could stand, in this type of leadership role that you're doing for your clients, and how you had to have that first base, which is, if I got this right, programming, emotion, action, results. Is that right?
Yeah, it's programming beliefs.
Beliefs.
Leads to our beliefs. Our beliefs create our attitudes.
Okay.
And then our attitudes are the foundation for our feelings. Our
Uh-huh.
feelings dictate our actions.
There
And then
you
our
go.
actions dictate results.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first thing is, when we first started off this conversation, is that, we're learning how to open our heart in a safe space.
Mhm.
Because as what I'm hearing, especially, I can feel your heart. It's just very, very special space. So to get there is really recognizing that everybody has their own personality. I know that I was a gabber. I asked so many questions, and at some point I was shut down and didn't know it. I was just told I was pouting, and then somebody would, laugh and skip and go, all this kind of stuff to me. And I know some of that stuff comes back to me when I'm having a hard day. But it really, like, I held my heart when you were sharing this, is that I can hear with the perfectionism, it's being built. Like, what about that bee? That bed isn't exactly what it is, but for some, it's 5 years old. Oh, that's just so beautiful. And to recognize the level that we're at, to when we first start business, that these things can come up when we're looking at, well, that person's doing something better. Oh, here, I better go back in my room. I better just sit there and just practice, practice, practice until I can get to whatever that person is. Oh, they've been doing it for 20 years. That's okay. I've been doing it for 5 minutes. It's all right. I'll just keep practicing. And there is no way to launch. Anybody else out there that is feeling like, no wonder why I can't launch, or no wonder why I'm doing all the busy work, but I'm not doing the stuff that connects me to people directly, being able to build business and create in those strategies. And so, kindergarten, you're already struggling. Then you get into this thing about fourth grade, nailing it. Uh-oh, I'm too smart. Now I'm going into fifth grade. Okay, that's cool. And then, but I don't have all the basics, so it's going to take a while. And that feeling as an entrepreneur, like you're going up the hill, you're like, yeah, I got this. You go like, yeah, I'm a C student right now, but I'm getting out there and I'm doing stuff, and it's going to work till I get to be that A student, that superstar where I can see where I want to go. And I'll nail that, but I'm in the gap. I'm like in the C, but how can we celebrate that space that
Hmm.
you see where you want to go and stop comparing yourself to people? So, how did you understand these experiences that just drive you? Like it's like a go back, but I can see why you're so driven. It's like, I can do it better. I can do it better. What is that in you and that you see in your clients that you are knowing that you're not the best out there, and that, but you're damn good,
Hmm.
and to not to move forward. Let's just put it that way. To move forward, what are the things you had to do, and the steps and strategies or tools you used to really recognize, I can do this, that past stuff doesn't mean anything except I was doing my best, however you want to explain that.
Sure. Well, again, keep in mind that the programming was all at the base of this. And so, I mean, I was programmed to think that I had to be perfect, that I was programmed that I wasn't good enough. I was programmed that I can never learn anything new. So when I began to realize, Rhonda, that I had these issues and they had to come from somewhere. And it was before I read Helmstedter's book, but I came to the realization that, yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I was in the ministry for 35 years. So I worked closely with youth, I worked close with their parents. And one of the things that I saw was, I mean, I saw a lot of bad parenting. And basically it's because you know we have 9 months to prepare when we become a dad or a mom. And we don't take college courses on that. I guess there are some courses you can take, but for the most part, we basically repeat what we learned from our parents, and that's how we parent. And I look back at my childhood and I realized I don't want to be that kind of parent. And so, I mean, I messed up plenty with my boys, I know. But I hope that I didn't make a lot of the same mistakes that were made with me. And I look at my oldest son's 42 right now. He's got 4 kids. I watch the way that he parents. And unfortunately, there are times that I see some things that he does that I taught, which were not really that great. But I also see him continuing to help break that cycle and be a better parent to his kids than I was to him. So let me go back to that programming. What I realized is that I needed to go back and look at that event, that time when my mom was trying to teach me how to tell time. And the message I was receiving was, I'm stupid, I can't learn anything. But when I look at that event as an adult, I realized that, first of all, my mom was very young when she had me. So she was not totally mature herself. She had dropped out of school. She did not complete high school. And so and yet she was, um, my dad, she married my dad, who had a master's degree. And she was suddenly thrust into these social events with these other women who had completed school. And so there's this, there were these feelings on her part that she was not good enough. She couldn't measure up because she didn't finish high school. She didn't want that for me. And so that, that's part of the reason that she was pushing me so hard. When I looked at that event as an adult, I realized that my mom's perception was off. And when she told me I was stupid and that I couldn't learn anything, that wasn't fact. That was what she was dealing with at that moment. But I needed to learn not to allow that to be a factor that continued to hold me back as an adult. Does that make sense, Rhonda? I mean, am I
It
communicating?
does. I like that you're reconciling this too, because it's like we can look at ourselves, because you were talking, speaking even about being a parent, and it's the learning to listen more and watch them, our kids do what they're doing and say, oh yeah, it goes back in your face. It's like, oh yeah, I understand that, that's what I was doing. So I love that, because then we get to be softer and recognize that, through this process, that those things that were in the past of being ingrained about perfectionism, and things are not good enough unless they really are at the top level of whatever you agree is the top level. How is it? Is this how you got your breakthrough to start business and moving forward and believing in yourself that you could actually run a business, make money, create, the clientele, and be able to help the clients with this by doing those reconciliations? Is that kind of one of the tools that you use, or?
Yeah, I became a business coach, life business coach in 2016. And like I said, I was in the ministry for 35 years, included a few years after 2016. Um, and so I learned a lot of things, but didn't realize what I was learning until when I became a business coach and I started working with other entrepreneurs. Is I could easily see that there were some attitudes that they were bringing to the table that were holding them, they were keeping them stuck. And I realized, okay, I can teach them a strategy how to increase their profit, but they're probably not going to implement that strategy if they feel like, if they're hesitant to make a decision, if they feel like it has to be perfect before they do it. And so I realized I can teach strategies, but until we deal with this issue of their attitude, and again, going back to their programming, until we deal with that, there's always going to be a wall between them and the success that they have the potential to achieve. And so when I started working with business owners and I came to that realization, that's when things began to fall into place for me, Rhonda. When I began to see my own childhood, the things that the programming that I had received, the years that I had been in the ministry, working closely with other families and watching the dynamics between parents and their children, and being able, I was in one church for 7 years, another for 10 years. So I saw these kids grow up, and I saw how that programming continued to affect them as they entered in their teen years.
Mm-hmm.
So that when I started working with business owners, I put all that stuff together and finally realized it. And when I identify that in a client that I'm working with now, I say, let's take a step back from the strategies for just a few minutes. Let's talk about you and your beliefs, your inner beliefs. What are the things that make you who you are, that are the foundation of the decisions that you make and the actions that you take? And so it was that realization. And then it was shortly after that I read this book, and there's a lot of other books that talk about the same progression and the importance of understanding that the way we were programmed as children may not be totally correct. And so as an adult, we can sit back and like you said earlier, I could sit here and just say, I'm just going to be a loser for the rest of my life because it's my mom's fault.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't do anybody any good. And so I can make a decision. I can go back and relive those events and see what it was that caused her to program me the way that she did. I can determine whether that programming was true or false.
Yeah.
And once I determine that it's false, I can reprogram that belief so that it's true.
Yeah, I love those brain strategies. I always think about, like the breaking the synapses. I know that we think 60 to 70,000 words a day just subconsciously. And when we start getting quiet and start really listening to what's going on, that it's known that we can think 80% negative through the whole day when they have done this research. And I know that if we do mindset stuff, that will be less than 80%. But with the fight or flight with the brain, it's those imprints that we're getting, like that is like the base. The it I, I'm thinking of like the the strategies and the tools you're doing to say, hey, let's do this breakthrough because I know that you're not getting into action over here. For our audience, can you give an example of a pretty quick example of when you are finding that you're just working with the client and they're like not getting the results, and you're like, okay, let's take a step back, like you were talking about, and then you went in there with however kind of strategy you needed to do, and then you started seeing them kind of lift themselves and move forward from them already knowing the strategy, but they weren't really stepping into it. Is there any story around that, any testimonial? I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I guess, you mentioned earlier that this is a safe space. And, that's certainly one of the things that I have discovered that has to be created for the clients that I work with. They need to trust me. And so, that's one of the reasons why, even in sales, I like to build relationships before I try to sell anything.
Yeah.
And so by building that relationship, by creating a bond of trust, is let's talk about perfectionism as an example then. So if I'm working with a client and they're not implementing the strategies that I am teaching them, then there's a time where I sit back with them and say, okay, let's examine this. Why do you think you're not doing this? And again, eventually, and usually you have to keep on asking questions. You have to keep digging. It's not a surface thing. You've got to get beyond all the garbage and get,
Yeah.
to the real root of the matter. And that takes, like I said, takes time. It takes trust. But to finally say, okay, why do you think you're not taking this action?
Great
And so
question.
maybe they'll say, well, I want to do it right. And I just don't, I feel like I've got to get this in line, all my ducks in a row before I can actually step out and do this. Okay, so there's the issue, perfectionism. So then I will ask them to start telling me times in their lives when they realized that they didn't take action because of perfectionism. And we just go back. The first story that they tell me may be from last week. But, again, we'll keep on digging deeper until finally they get to their origin event, what I call an origin event, like my bed making, my telling time, those types of things. Some early memory that they have. Now, Rhonda, I do want to emphasize something here. I am sure that the way that I remember those events is not 100% accurate.
Yeah.
I was a 5-year-old when that happened.
You're a scared 5-year-old, so it could be different, than
Yeah,
how you felt at 5th grade.
exactly.
As a 5-year-old.
That's the point, is how I felt.
Yeah.
And I have to take responsibility for my feelings, And so once I get them to begin to go back and to try to find what's the earliest memory I have of not being able to do something because I wasn't perfect at it. And then we can begin to dissect, okay, who was the authority figure that told you that you had to be perfect? What was the situation? How old were you? What's perfection for a 5-year-old is a whole lot different than it is for somebody who's my age right now.
All right.
And so we just begin to take that event and we dissect it as much as we can. And then we rebuild it based on what we know as fact today. Again, does that make sense?
I love that, because then you get to kind of break away the walls. The trust factor is there so they can see and hear you. And then you get to build it up like, oh yeah, what about that over there? Oh, hey, I did that. Okay, what about this? And I can remember for myself, there was even a time when I'm an accountant and I passed the CPA exam. And in my mind, I always said, you're dumb, you're dumb, you're dumb, every angle you can think of. And even when I passed the exam, it still showed up. On my best days, I would be a rock star and do what I did, and I was a very good worker, but I couldn't expand to my highest level because I kept getting pushed down on that. So when you're building, you're helping somebody really shed that stuff to really recognize the things that are right in front of them. That's the truth. These other things is, based on a story that maybe is not exactly the way it happened. I know my mom says that to my brother and me too. She goes, that didn't happen that way. And it's like, but to us it did. I'm like, so it has to be an open conversation if you get an opportunity, to
Right.
talk to your parent or just kind of let it go, so that you can build it. So now that you have this client and they're starting to build upon this, is this where you start seeing the courage and the excitement, like the reconnection of the passion of what they're really doing, being able to help people, help businesses, help, like work and, and build? Like, what happens where you just all of a sudden just know, like, is it the words they start seeing, the words and phrases, is it the look on the face, is it the energy? Like, when do you know they're like ready to, okay, let's get back into that, let's get that strategy moving forward?
Yeah,
What do you
even,
see?
Rhonda, it even begins to show up in their language. People that are really hard on themselves
Yeah.
and that are operating on these faulty programming from their childhood are often saying those things. It's sort of like, well, Chris, yeah, I'll do that, but I'm just not sure if I'm going to be able to get that done right. That tells me that their head's not in the right space.
Yeah.
As we begin to work, as they begin to share, as they begin to open up, and it's not a one-time thing. It's not like, I sit with them in one session and say, okay, here's what you need to do, and they go back and they say, okay, I'm going to change my programming, that whatever I was told, I don't have to be a perfectionist, whatever I was told about that, I don't have to do that. But when they come back the next week, that's still there. They may have made a little bit of progress, but it's still there. It's an ongoing process. And that's one of the reasons why, and again, I focus on business coaching, but I'm also a life coach. But if someone's really having an issue with mindset, I would recommend finding a good life coach, transformational coach, and there are plenty of them,
Oh,
especially
Chris,
like,
you're already a life coach. You recommend yourself. Actually, you're right though. When you're in this heart space, sometimes you're like, oh, okay, so we're gonna be working on this. Go get a life coach so that we can strategize together. I'm always finding that people are usually investing in just more than one thing, and you go, here, wait, how can I tether what you're doing over here and you're learning so I can partner with that so that we keep moving things forward? I know that I've been doing this for 15 years and CPA accounting for 10 years. So, and all that. And, I look at again, what you were talking about, like the belief and the feelings and the action, the results. And that just gets you, because sometimes we can have big things happening in our life. And it could be that you decided that you're going to invest in a 30,000 coach or something, a $30,000 coach, because you've been nailing it, or just your first coach, 5,000 or whatever it costs. And you're just going, yeah, I can do it. Yeah, I can do it. But when you do something very big, that's where that mindset support I can see is like, okay, I guess that's really showing up because you jumped really big. I'm ready for that quantum leap. But I think that's what we need to discover is what's really tearing us down. Because and I want to ask you about your programs, because there's a theory, because we're on the tail end of this conversation,
mhm.
but there's this theory that I have. So tell what you think about this, because the way that you're working with clients, so people get to know how you do this. I feel I've been in group settings and I've been stuck in my head and walls and stuff, but I didn't have the answers to anything. I didn't know that I had these limiting beliefs, whatever was showing up, because it looks different no matter what, but it's still the same base. And so I would see people doing really, really, really well. Probably they've been, getting coached for a while. And I'm like, here, wait, I feel so bad because I guess it's just not my, like it's just not me. There's something there that's wrong. Man, I'm so happy for that person because I really love opening my heart to people. But I noticed that just the group setting, that it's easy to be all in and still be in your way and not get the results. So for me, I really like to have somebody like you, that because I lead with the mindset a lot to kind of get there to connect. So I need somebody like you to be able to help me when I'm in a group program, because I don't know that I'm saying those things to me, because that's my biggest breakthrough. That's why I'm paying to invest in a coach. So I believe that when I have a group program, I need some way to do a personal connection with them somehow, because just the things I'm saying in this, and I know some people basically run big, awesome group programs, but people come in and come out, and there's this whole thing. And it really gets me as, a coach, that if somebody's leaving because they just can't move forward, they don't know how to do that. It's like I feel like it's on my time. Like, I'd be like, man, I wish I could have just got them to that point. So I really usually like to try and figure out how to have a personal touch with them just enough so I can hear where their mindset is through a group program. And sometimes it's kind of like a combination of stuff. How do you deal with that? Because you're talking so much strong about the mindset when you are in a group, or do you do individual? How do you run your programs?
Most of my group coaching focuses pretty much just on business. But again, like you said, if in a group, if I've got a person that's in one of my group programs and I'm really seeing mindset as a barrier, is then I will make a one-on-one contact with them, and
Hmm.
and depending on what kind of a program they're in, I mean, I'll still give them some one-on-one time. But
Yeah.
one of the things, Rhonda, that I see, and I know from myself, is it's easier to be an actor in a group than it is one-on-one. And you people that are in a group kind of know what's expected. Now, and still, I mean, I have people, when I'll ask them a question, Rhonda, do you have a problem with perfectionism? And you can swear up and down, no, no, no. I mean, I've got that licked. I don't have that problem.
Or they can't even see what that definition is for them. Like, that's the breakthrough that they need.
And so yes, I continue to ask questions and dig deeper. Is when finally you see the light bulb come on in their own mind,
Yeah.
that wow, I've been denying this for so long. And when I as we continue to grow, to dive deeper into their mind, their mentality, their thinking, their mindset, there comes a point where they finally, it's just like all the pieces kind of fit together, and it's like, oh, now I understand why I have a problem making a decision, or why I'm afraid to try something new.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this. It's sort of like, I don't want to offend anybody, but it's sort of like being an alcoholic.
Mhm.
You can control your alcoholism, but you're still an alcoholic.
Yeah.
I still deal with these mindset problems. I'll be working on something, and all of a sudden I'll take a step back and think, wow, I am not moving forward because of perfectionism.
Yeah.
And so, I've kind of, I've got to go back. It's not a one-time thing where, you get a shot and you're cured forever. you know, it is something that you have to work on. And that's one of the reasons why I highly recommend coaching.
Yeah.
And again, I usually don't, with my business clients, I don't push myself as a life coach. I do some life coaching with them, but if they really need to get a life coach, I try to get them hooked up with someone else, because I want to focus on their business, but I want them to deal with some of those issues that are
Yeah.
holding back their success.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I've been in the health industry for 25 years, and I think about that, like, how can I blend this stuff that I just don't want to let it go? When I was 19, I was told, you are doing this, this, and this. This is what you need to do. I can tell you're going to help our community. And so it took a while for somebody to get me in there and do it, because I didn't want to be in front of people. I would turn red if I was in front of more than one person, if I didn't feel safe. And now it's like, okay, so I'm doing business coaching. So how do we blend those two without them crushing on each other? Like, so I think of it as, even for you, like, you have your gems of what you learned, like your base. And I'm speaking to Fresh Talks Global Vision Group also. Think about all the stuff you've ever done in your life. And I think about this, Chris, that your life coaching is the way that they can see their lifestyle. And with the tips and tools and tricks and strategies, that mindset really is your lifestyle coaching, your life coaching certification. You really are blending those two. And if you are blending those and playing with those, because now for me, I'm doing meditation, I'm looking at the sunrise, I'm just putting it on YouTube so they can grab it or I can send it. Like, I'm just doing these things that are just like you, a lifespan of stuff. So it's like, let's own this. And how can we do that? And how do we get in alignment? This is for everybody. How do we get in that alignment so we wake up in the morning and we're not scared? And sometimes I do. I'm that's a good practice of being scared, waking up first thing in the morning, scared. All the stuff that happened to me when I was younger, scared. And I go, here, wait, I'm not scared today. Okay, but even if I am, what alignment do I need to do for myself before I connect with anybody, before I hurt anybody? Like, I think about, people that pay for us, they're like, the emotions of what we're going through can affect and splat on them when they're being safe and open. So I see how your life coaching is very powerful for your clients and just what you're doing right now. So what I've been doing is a couple times out of the month doing this kind of like little mini vitality retreat, meditation, whatever. Anybody in that group, it's just part of it. I won't let people off the hook that, do you want to come in? Well, they can come in, but I know that they're going to be getting all of that invested in what they're doing. And I see that you're doing that too, because there's no way that somebody can feel safe with all the work that you've done. You are holding the space as a life coach. You're displaying the safety there. A lifestyle is about, I feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
I think of it, freedom, safety, and healing. We're healing, we're finding our safety, and we're finding our freedom in our body and our words and speaking our vocals. You're doing that. It's all there.
Yeah, and one of the things too, Rhonda, and this is just, it's beyond life coaching too. But if I'm working with when I'm working with clients, if I find something that's a common issue with several different clients,
Yeah.
is then I will do a workshop.
Mhm.
And no charge for them to come into this
Yeah.
workshop. We'll deal with that. And one of the things that also does is it provides some networking,
Yeah.
because so often we feel like we're dealing with our problems on our own. I'm the only one who has ever felt this way. And the reality is, no, never. There's always people out there who have gone through similar situations, who can relate, who have gone into that dark tunnel and come out better on the other side. And when we connect people like that together, they have another resource that they can fall back on. Like you said, you wake up in the morning and you feel afraid. Who can you call that will say, Chris, wake up. You know better than that.
You're living your past. You're
Yeah.
living your past. Yeah.
So,
Chris,
I mean, I
I'm
do
so
that.
happy.
I will offer specific workshops to deal with those
I
issues,
love it.
work with the networking to try to connect them with others who can
Yeah.
relate to what they're going through.
I love your stories. I love that I held this space for this long, and I want to spend time with you because I could feel your gems. And sometimes, like we're just getting to know each other too. So
Mhm.
it's the like getting into the down and dirty of like really this is going to help people that are dealing with their goals around their health and wellness. This is going to affect people that are just wanting to move forward in their relationships, in business, and why are they not stopping themselves? You laid out the foundation for them. Again, even bringing up that book to me, Life, Feelings, Action, Results. If I didn't say it right, it's pretty close though. You have a path, and you think about that with your imprint and what you brought in of what happens when you're a child. And uh, we carry those imprints around with us, but the more that we get aware, the more we get to educate people around us and say, hey, I don't want to be you in this cycle with me thinking that I'm still the same person. And a lot of people will say, hey, people don't really change. You did that yesterday. I know it's just yesterday, but I woke up a new person. I'm trying to do the best I can. So if you can start seeing my actions, which is that third part, I'm working on my belief system and my feelings around that, my emotions around that, because I really want the results. So if you can be kind of gentle with me for a bit, but no, I'm working on it because I want you to see the action. And these conversations are so important. That's why I feel like we have these things on earth that are so, we're fighting, and the fight or flight is that we are discovering that we can really wake up the next day and have a new identity, but we really want to keep using our vocals to be able to express in our relationships so people don't keep trying to pull us back to where we were. So watch Fresh Talks Global Vision, watch where people are holding the space of like that's not very positive and what you've done before in the past. Because if we keep getting reminded of all the stuff we've done in the past, I know when you're on your trajectory and you're doing great action, you're going to be able to say, oh, those are naysayers. That's fine. But when we build really big, you're going to fall back in those beginner steps that Chris was talking about. So, how can we keep playing with this and feel safe? I called again freedom, safety, and healing. And how can we do that? So, I want you to connect with Chris and get to know how it feels to maybe there's some free things I want you to share that, Chris, or in on his calendar, or maybe there's a small investment, but go out there and say yes to people that are in their heart space, not people that are just giving you the action. You'll see this hour of spending time with him that you're learning that how does it feel to be with somebody that's just action oriented and they're just spewing and talking to you. Doesn't it trigger you to go back to your imprints that happened when you were a kid? What if you're with somebody like Chris that is like, I see you, I can hear you, and I've worked on my stuff working and keep seeking those people. These are the people I bring into Fresh Talks Global Vision. There's so much work to be done before I will even say yes to somebody coming in. And most people coming in, it is an investment. It is a pay for play because we put it out there on YouTube and TikTok. And we do a lot of sizzles for you. But I want you to think about even coming here and speaking on our show if you want to. But I first need to make sure that you're in your heart sense. And you know that if you've done this work, what Chris is talking about, you can feel it in your nervous system. So when you're having a healthy day, please take a breath in and feel where your nervous system is. Are you shaky? And if you're used to it being shaky, is it shaky less than it was the day before? Then you know you're dialed in. It doesn't have to be pure silent because that's going to take, like Mother Teresa time before you start feeling nothing and you're totally calm. Chris, how can people connect with you? How would you like that?
Um,
We can get the information after if you want to do that too. But do you have something you'd like to bring people into or share
uh,
with
yeah, if again, this is more business oriented, but if you connect with
them?
me, and then if you want to say, hey, I was on Rhonda, I saw you on Rhonda's show, and I'd like to talk to you some more about mindset. Once we connect, you'll have my email. You can send me an email. But if you go to my website, chris-mahan.com /simulator, And this is a tool that I use with business owners. And it's kind of interesting. You just made a comment a moment ago that if I wake up better today, just a little bit better today than I was yesterday, I need to realize that's progress. Small incremental changes can totally change our mindset. One of the things we didn't talk so much about this, but again, this whole book about what to say when you talk to yourself, you know, you are programmed, some of the negative programming that we carry around with us is a result of years and years and years of programming. And it's not going to go away overnight. You basically have to reprogram yourself. And that's where, affirmative talk comes in, where you're talking to yourself. And it's, when that thought comes through, oh, I'm not good enough, is, to immediately, well, yeah, I am good enough. And here's why. And so talking to yourself. But if you go to Chris-Mahan, that's CHRIS, the minus sign, if you will, MAHAN.com/simulator. And this is a tool that I use to show business owners how when they make incremental changes in their strategies, they can make major impacts on their profit. But like I said, if you want to connect with me that way, and then just shoot me an email and say, hey, I saw you on Rhonda's show, I'd like to talk about mindset, I'll be glad to set up a time to talk with you.
Most people here are business strategists. That's usually what we get. But yeah, I mean, hey, you never know. Maybe I'll start a new line for you of like mindset, and it'll explode, because I'm telling you, with your background and your workings around that, I can see you being an extremely powerful business coach and holding the space, because that's what needs to happen, is the healing, so you can hold the space for people that are very strong-willed. I had a client the other day just say, I don't know why I'm not into action. I'm like, well, because of this, this, and this. And she's like, yeah. And so I don't know why I'm not into action. I said, because you're holding the people around you that are disappointing you. That's where you feel comfortable. You have somebody that's helping you into action, and so we need to work on that stuff. So I'm finding that these types of conversations, like what you're talking about, that this is the only place I know where to go to, is get the strategies going, but that mindset is just like intertwined. I think everybody deals with their crap. And I just had somebody in a conversation just a bit ago interviewing, and the only thing that got her rocking and rolling was somebody who was very rude to her, or telling her she wasn't worthy of anything, and somehow she would do the work because that's what she was raised with, and had to learn how to not be sick anymore physically, and calm her body down and be success and recreate what that success is. So it comes in myriad of ways for people. So
Mhm.
I appreciate you so much, Chris. In our YouTube channel, I have the simulator, and also in our other softwares that we're streaming too. So we're recording also. So I
All right.
appreciate you, my friend, and your time. You have a fabulous day. Let's keep reconnecting together. I really respect and appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely, Rhonda. I appreciate what you do, because obviously we both know mindset's a big deal.
Namaste, my friend. Namaste. All right. Thank you, Chris.
Thank
Fresh
you
Talk
so much.
Global. You're welcome. Let's keep with the mindset and the flow, and keep connected with us. This Mindset Matters series, you see what's happening. We're just like unraveling and pulling it apart. All of this is truth. And you can make a powerful lifestyle and a powerful business. Appreciate you. Namaste. Thank you, Chris.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so I have you at a meeting for Be Connected. Nobody came in. So I'm going to postmark it, which can be real powerful. I'll pull out